I'm smiling because I finally have really good news for everybody that's currently on Social Security or those of us that are planning on starting Social Security in the next 3, 4, or 5 years. And we've all worked hard for Social Security. And one of the last things we want to happen is once we start taking Social Security, for some of that payment, or frankly, all of it, to be taken away from us. And you might be thinking, hey, that's not possible. But I want to share with you that it is possible and then give you the update that just came out in the last few days about making it less likely to happen to any of us because unfortunately garnishment, having our checks reduced, is more likely than most people think. Let's look here. This is the Social Security website, ssa.gov, and this is their article. Can my Social Security benefits be garnished or levied? And unfortunately, the answer to that is yes, they can. There's three sections here. Section 459. Section 459 permits Social Security to withhold current and continuing Social Security payments to enforce legal obligations for child support, alimony, or restitution. Restitution is usually something with a criminal activity where the perpetrator, the person found guilty, has to make restitution to the victim. There's also a Debt Collection Improvement Act of 1966, which allows the Treasury to withhold Social Security benefits to collect delinquent non-tax debts owed to other federal agencies. And this is the gotcha, and the Department of Education is issuing something on this today. Okay, and then finally, Section 1024 of the Taxpayer Relief Act of 1977 authorizes the IRS to levy up to 15% of each Social Security payment for overdue federal tax payment until the tax payment's due. Now, I recently did this video here. Big changes. In fact, as I release it, as I record this video, this just came out. But I'm happy to say there's good news. So this article, you can see by the headline here, people's checks were being reduced by up to 50%. At one point, the government was talking about taking back 100% of people's Social Security. And this is when people had inadvertently, through no fault of their own, been overpaid Social Security benefits. And it's how quickly, once the government finds that, does the Social Security recipient have to pay that back. So originally, it was 100%, then it dropped down to 50%, and I believe it's come down from then. But what I want to talk about here is this article on Investopedia, the Department of Education reverse course on Social Security garnishment. Now, the other thing was the 50% reduction. That was based on a CNBC article, as new Social Security leadership takes the helm. Here are some changes that beneficiaries need to look at. And that's the new withholding rate for repaying benefits. And this is when people were overpaid benefits due to errors. And it started off at 100%, and then it got reduced down to 25%. But the student loan piece is going to impact a lot more of us because very few people are accidentally paid too much money by Social Security. But more people than you think still have student loans. Let's look at this article here. Going back to this article by Investopedia, Department of Education reverses course on Social Security garnishment. This is for student loans. In a statement to Investopedia, Ellen Keast, a Department of Education spokesperson, said that the department had not garnished any benefits issued by the federal government program that provides income to retired and disabled Americans, Social Security, due to student loan collections. Keast also said the department has put a pause on any future garnishment. She goes on to say the Trump administration is committed to protecting Social Security recipients who oftentimes rely on fixed income. And this is a big relief from what it was earlier, because this talks about, until this statement came out, here is what people were thinking when it came to student loans. And the Department of Education was talking about restarting these student loan payments and garnishing people's Social Security. So on May 5th, that was going to start. And you can see here the student loan default could see up to 15% of their Social Security checks withheld and sent to the loan holder. Okay, now you might be thinking, hey, Azul, it's not that big of a deal. How many seniors really owe student loans? Let's look into this. It's more prevalent than you think. This is according to PBS. Older Americans are at risk as government restarts Social Security garnishment on student loans. Now, this has been updated now, and the Department of Education says they're not going to do it, but there's some good stats I want to share with you about people that have student loans. Okay, people 60 and older hold an estimated $125 billion of student loans, and somewhere in here is how many people. That's a bunch of things has caused our student loan payments to balloon. And here is the estimate. Almost 500,000 people, 452,000 people aged 62 and older had student loans in default and were likely to experience the Department of Education's renewed forced collection, according to the January report from the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Okay, so what does all this mean to us? One of the challenges in the United States, and one of the things I talk about a fair amount here on my channel is, just the handcuffs that debt gives us and the ability to free those handcuffs. Because when we're working, when we're younger, it's just too easy to kick this can down the road to say, I'm going to worry about my debts later. Hopefully I'll get some promotions at work. I'll start making more money. And then I'll start living in my means. Then I'll start paying down my debt. But what typically happens for people is just as they get to the point where they want to retire, that's when the kicking the can ends. And there is no more kicking the can down the road. And there are no loans for retirement, right? We have student loans, we have mortgage loans, we have car loans, we have consumer debt when we buy stuff that shows up in cardboard boxes on our front porch. But you know what there are no loans for? There are no loans for retirement. And so when the bill comes due is at the same time when people are saying, boy, I can barely wait to retire. I'm so excited to retire, but the reality is they can't, because they have to repay all of this debt. So today's news is good news for Social Security recipients. What can we all do? We dodged a bullet here, but if you have debt, keep this in mind that, the Department of Education plays for keeps, and they can and have garnished people's Social Security, and our debt can keep us from being able to retire. I know it's hard to do, but if you've got that debt, start paying it down, doing what you can, so that when you get to the age that you want to retire, you're not handcuffed by those debts. If you like this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch next.